Let's... Hey everybody, and welcome to episode number 47 of The Kickabout with me, Chris, and as always, Fran and Dan with us. Stop laughing at my voice. Say hi, say hi.
Oh, yeah. Hi, have you lost your voice?
How have you not lost your voice? How have you guys not lost your voice from all the shouting?
I don't know.
I mean, my voice...
Mine's a bit deeper.
All right. Like James L. Jones over there.
No.
My voice is still didn't recover after Wednesday.
Oh no,
and then I think I made it worse again yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh no. I didn't know if you were trying to be quiet for the kids or if you were purposely.
No, I'm genuinely sound like I've been smoking 40 Benson Hedges a day for the last 20 years. Oh dear. Right.
What a great voice to end the podcast with.
I know, what a way to end the series. But yeah, this is the last one. Last one I say last one like it's...
For like a month.
Yeah, for like about 3 weeks until the Premier League comes back.
Yeah.
So yeah, a bit of a short turnaround. So as always, we will start the show with this. Down the stat, man!
So, Gareth Southgate has made at least one change to the England starting 11 for 37 consecutive matches, making a total of 200 changes in that time.
Bloody hell, I didn't know that.
Yeah, but any ideas as to when he last used the same lineup twice?
As England manager? Well, 38 games ago then. whatever number of games you said. That's crazy, yeah. I mean, we're going to be a while guessing that, I think, later. But yeah, that's a crazy stat, that. Well, Fantasy League update. So, turns out that we got our wish after all. So, one of these guys that decided to put in 35 teams didn't win. My work colleague, Dan Berry, managed to pip him at the post in the final round. I think he had Luke Shaw and Bonucci in his team.
Yeah, nice.
So, yeah, he got lucky with obviously the 2 goals coming from those 2 players. And he very kindly has asked us to donate the £50 winnings to the Kick It Out charity. So well done to Dan, and that's given what happened yesterday and today, that's a pretty poignant message to put out there. So
better man than me.
Yeah, I'd have been taking that 50 quid and going out and buying something damn right. But no, fair play to him, and we will we'll make sure we post evidence to our socials, but certainly to Dan to confirm that we've done it. So, right, well, I suppose we better get into it. I mean, quick show of hands. That's probably not a good idea for an audio podcast. But who thought we would be reviewing an England final on the last show of the series when we started this way back when?
Crazy. No.
Not
Not at all.
That was like my one ambition, was just to get to the final, like to better the semi-final last time. But obviously, once you get to the final, you kind of want to go all the way.
You do.
There, don't you?
It's, when you're running up to final, it's like, yeah, let's just make the final. That'll be a successful tournament. But then you're there, and it's like, oh, I really want to win. So let's start from the sort of the start of the game. You kind of alluded to there with your stat that there was a change made in the scene. We reverted to the back 5, even though officially it's a 3-4-3, but in effect it's a back 5.
Yeah.
What did you make of that ahead of the game? Were you surprised?
This time last night, we were winning the Euro. Just going to say.
Yes and no. I'd kind of heard rumours that he was going to be changing it, like quite sort of early on in the day. And I think obviously because Italy are a stronger team, sort of on the likes of like Germany and that, so I'm not really surprised that he went for that lineup. But I thought it worked really well in the first half, but second half we were shocking.
Yeah, I think it was interesting because obviously Italy don't play that formation. And usually Gareth Southgate has changed it to the 5 because he wants to match up against whoever we're playing. So I did find it interesting that he went down that road, but equally I'm not surprised because he has done that historically when we've come up against bigger and better teams. And we showed against Germany that we're more than capable of playing good football when we play that formation. So it didn't massively concern me. I think up until yesterday, Southgate had very much earned, our trust that, he was doing the right thing because it had worked out so well before that. But obviously the game getting that early goal. I mean, it's a very English thing to say, scoring too early in a game.
Well, that was my biggest. I was saying before the game, I was like, my biggest fear is that we do what we did against Croatia, where we score
certainly
early,
felt like that,
and then we
it?
just sit back and try and hold out for a 1-0 win, and that's just what it felt like. We scored 2 minutes, which was even earlier than the Croatia game, and then it just felt like we were just soaking up pressure for the 90 minutes.
Well, it was kind of weird because I think by setting up with a 5, it almost felt like we did want to try and contain Italy. And I think probably in Southgate's mind and in probably the players' mind is that game was likely to have been 0-0 for a reasonable amount of time. So when you score so early like that, it's like, what do we do now? It was like they didn't know where to stick or twist. Do we keep going for it and try and get a second, or do we stick with plan A and contain them? And
because they went for it. For like the first 2 minutes before the goal, they were proper going.
Yeah.
I mean, even the first 15 minutes or so, I thought we pressed really well.
First half, we played really well.
Yeah, most of it.
To be fair, the goal that we conceded was a scrappy, crappy goal.
And could it have been ruled out?
Why is that?
For handball on the initial flick from the corner. I'll be honest, I haven't seen it myself. I've been seeing...
I haven't watched any highlight. I don't want to watch any highlights, so I can't say.
So from what I remember seeing, and I'd had a few by this point, that when the initial flick came on at the near post, it looked like it may have hit the arm of the Italy player. I don't know which player it was that flicked it on. And I'll be honest, I'm completely lost on the rule and what handball is now in terms to if it leads directly to a goal and whether enough had happened between that point and the ball being scrambled in that you kind of forget about. So I don't really know. But yeah, it was frustrating because, I mean, Pickford made a couple of good saves. But I still felt like we had a reasonable amount of control on the game without looking like we were going to score a second. But obviously that's the risk you run if you're going to sit there, and especially second half, as you say, where we were all saying at the pub, like, we cannot just sit back for 45 minutes because we'll get caught. And like 5 minutes into the game, we were like, shit, yeah, we're sitting back for this. This is going to be a long half of football.
It's a hell of a goal, though. I mean, right wing back to left wing back.
It was. And it was. I said to you in the text, and I just wish he like pulled up his shirt and said "fuck you, Mourinho" on it, just for everything. I mean, it's a sensational story for sure because I was looking at it and I can't believe he's been at United 7 years now.
Yeah, I didn't realise we signed him when he was 18.
27 million at 18. He's now 25. If you think what he's been through, he had that horrific injury, which he later found out almost cost him his leg, let alone playing again. He almost had his leg amputated. Then he is sort of discarded almost by Mourinho, sidelined and bullied at worst. And now he's had the season of his career and topped it off with a goal in the European Championship final.
Crazy.
And he's now got Roberto Carlos actually saying that he's an amazing player. You know, he's now been nicknamed Shawberto, hasn't he? So, what about the decision to play Mount in that sort of right attacking position? Do you think that was a right call?
Nah, personally, I would have gone for Grealish, to be honest.
I don't know if I'll be honest, I think Saka can count himself unlucky. I know when Saka came on, he didn't really do anything, but because you've lost, Mount is not a winger for me. He's a box-to-box midfielder, central midfielder. I know he can drift one side or the other or whatnot, but when you've lost an attacking player by a switch of formation, I feel like you need to maintain that excitement, that pace. And Mount is not a pacey player particularly. That's not his game. No. He's not going to run at people like Saka or Sterling will. So I'm honest, I think Mount stayed on a lot longer than he should have done.
I'm getting so bored of watching Harry Kane drop below the halfway line as well. Yeah,
we lost count of the number of times that we got the ball into good areas near the byline, and like the only person in the middle is like Mason Mount. It's like you're our only target man because all our wingers are 4'2". We need you in the box, and he just wasn't there. Which is why sometimes you feel like actually, if Kane's going to do that, play Kane as a number 10 or a false 9. And stick Calvert-Lewin up front.
Who's like 6'2", 6'3".
And he can jump to the sky, and he will stay as that focal point. So, yeah, it was a frustrating day. I mean, for England to move forward, there has to be criticism, right? You have to be able to accept criticism. You have to learn from it and maybe do something different the next time. And on that point, let's talk about the penalties. Horrific way to end. It's a complete lottery. There's been a lot made about we'll get to the really negative stuff later, but in terms of the order, the way they played out, what was your thoughts? on the penalties.
To be honest, when I saw Harry Maguire step up to take the second one, I thought, what the hell is going on here?
What a penalty.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It was one of the best penalties I've ever seen, and he broke the camera.
She's straight into the top corner. Could have got it anywhere.
I get Harry Kane going first because I feel like captain, leader, he's like, he rarely misses a pen. So I get it. Good mentality going first.
And it sets the
precedent
yes,
of
exactly.
moving forward.
Sorry, Karen.
There wasn't, I would, in hindsight, you would say you should have put Harry Maguire later because we know he scored. But obviously everyone like you, when he stepped up to take it, like you would probably presume that Harry Maguire is less likely to score than like Rashford.
Yeah,
Grealish.
I don't like players taking penalties that haven't kicked the ball yet.
Yeah, that's been one criticism I've seen is that, the practice of bringing players on for taking penalties is nothing new.
No.
So that's not a problem. It's the fact that he did it so late that they've barely touched the ball before the penalty shootout starts. And so that seemed quite weird to me.
They should have brought them on at like the second half of extra time.
Yeah, give them 10, 15 minutes.
Least.
Maybe they can even affect the game and stop it from going to penalties.
And to have Saka taking a decisive penalty, I think, was just ridiculous.
I mean, as Fran says, it's all hindsight, right? I mean, if the keeper goes the other way, we're hailing him as a hero. But
I think he is, but I still think he is still a hero for doing that at 18 or 19, however old he is. Like he just shouldn't be last.
Apparently, after Saka, Pickford would have been the next penalty taker.
Really? So still not Grealish or Shaw or Sterling.
And did you see what Grealish tweeted?
Yes.
Yeah.
So there was a big thing. So for those who didn't know, so there's been a lot of criticism about, particularly like the one that's been quoted is Roy Keane.
Yeah.
Never one to shy away from a conversation, is the old Roy.
No.
And he basically said that for Sterling and Grealish in particular, those were the two names he singled out, for them to stand by and watch someone as young as Saka step up and take the penalty, or the penalty, which could either send us, potentially into sudden death or get us kicked out. They said that, it's disgraceful, basically. So how can you let that happen?
Where did he get that from, though? Is he just presuming?
Well, I think
He's
he just assumed,
Yeah, he's presuming.
All of us assumed, to be fair. I presumed that they'd just stood by and let them take it.
I mean, Southgate came out pretty quick at the end, didn't he, to say that the penalty takers was completely my call.
Yeah.
So he took the blame. And Grealish has since tweeted and basically said, no, I did put my hand up to say I'll take one, but we went with the gaffer, and he was quick to say in the tweet that, the manager's made a lot of big calls, he's got them all right. So he wasn't in any way blaming Southgate, but he was equally saying, hang on a minute, let's chill out. I did ask to take a penalty. I did say I'll be prepared to take one, but Southgate obviously chose
difficult.
different.
Like, I'm assuming he's gone off of how they've done penalties in training, but taking a penalty in a training session surrounded by your mates is very different to taking a penalty surrounded by 90,000 fans or whatever the capacity
You're never going to be able
was.
to replicate the pressure, are you?
In a European Championship final.
At all. But I think,
Could Saka have taken like the second one?
Yeah, I would have. I don't have a problem with taking one, but I don't think he should have taken the decisive one.
Unfortunate in the lead
Especially
up to
after two players missed before him as well.
Yeah.
But they
was
wouldn't
all
have known
on
that.
But I mean, the counter argument to that is that, he's hit the target. All right, it's not a great penalty. Like Sancho, he opened up his body a bit too early for me to make it a bit too obvious which way he was going. And Donnarumma's a great keeper. He read it and obviously won the day. But look at Jorginho. I mean, this guy takes regular penalties for Chelsea. He took the winning penalty and absolutely mugged off the Spain goalkeeper in the semi-final, and yet he missed. So if an experienced player like him can miss a penalty, then so can anybody else.
I mean, everyone can miss a penalty. I think a lot of it is down to luck. It's just unfortunate that Rashford missed.
Well, Rashford went the right. I mean, Donnarumma dived the wrong way. It's just unfortunate that he missed the target.
Yeah, it's almost like he thought the job was done and just sort of relaxed a little bit. But again, half an inch the other way, and we're hailing him as a world-class penalty. But I talked about this last week, didn't I? I had a little mini rant at the end of the show about this whole stutter, stop. It just feels like I
do understand the style because it was a good idea because he saw that Donnarumma was going the other way, and that's when he just tried to place it in. But the problem is, you lose all momentum, and I think he was stood so close to the ball.
He was digging it out.
Yeah, he was almost sort of hitting it with the back of his heel rather than placing it with his foot.
I just feel like when you've been given a penalty, so in a normal game, if it happens within 90 minutes, the reason you've got the penalty is because the defence has done something wrong, they fouled you or whatever it is. So the advantage is given to the strikers because you've been denied a good opportunity to score, right? So you've been given an uncontested shot from 12 yards. Why introduce variables into it that potentially gets rid of some of that advantage and puts it back towards the keeper? Now, I get that some players, Jorginho's done it a lot of this. He doesn't do it all the time, actually, it's worth noting. For Chelsea, I've seen him actually just properly put his foot through it a little bit. But I just feel like in a European Championship final, unless you're Pirlo, who's
I was disappointed there was no Panenka.
Can you imagine if an England player tried a Panenka and got it wrong? My God. I just feel like, look at Maguire's penalty. That was the most impressive out of all of them because he just larrups it.
I was going to say, I don't know why forward players don't go for the top corners. I know it's easy to say, I'll just put it in the top corner, but goalkeepers never dive to the top corners. They always dive. Yeah, they always dive low right or low left or sort of stay in the middle.
Yeah.
So I never understand why, a forward player for United, City, Tottenham can't aim for the top corner.
And with a goalkeeper like Donnarumma, he's 6'5", I think, he's very agile. Like Harry Kane showed, you have to get it right in the corner. Even so, if the keeper goes the right way, as long as you get it right in the corner, you're going to score. But if you don't, and he goes the right way, he's going to save it at that height. And you don't have to get it even right in the top corner. Even sort of like between halfway in the top corner, keeper's not going to save it because even if he puts his hand up there, it's not going to be strong enough to save it.
Whereas if you go bottom corner, you've got a 50-50 chance because the keeper's either going to dive the right way and save it, or dive the wrong way and hit the post.
Oh dear, but no, it's, as we say, hindsight's a wonderful thing. Southgate has earned enough slack that we can't be too heavily critical because he has got us to a major championship final. The progress of this England team has been extraordinary over the last sort of 2 years, from a major tournament point of view. But it's just so disappointing to lose it in a final. It felt like everything was falling into place for England in the run up to this. It felt like everything was going our way.
Not just a final, but a home final.
But it shouldn't have been a home final, but it felt like it, didn't it?
Well,
because of the way we just played every game at home bar one.
Yeah, but it was obviously at Wembley rather than being in Azerbaijan or something like that.
Yeah, I suppose ultimately, what do we think of Italy? Do we think they would deserve winners in the end across the tournament on the night?
Across the tournament, and I think in that game, if they were to flip a coin, I think I would say Italy deserved it.
Yeah.
Because I do think after that first goal, we just sort of sat back and tried to get a clean sheet. Whereas Italy, I feel like were fighting obviously had to fight to get back in the game. But I felt like, if that game were to go on golden goal, they would have scored a second before we scored a second.
Yeah. I do. Part of me thinks that Southgate maybe it's because he's still quite an inexperienced manager. Maybe I'm doing him a disservice. I know he's been a manager for a little while, but maybe managing at that level in big games like that. Mancini's been there and done it for club level and whatnot. And I feel like Mancini, he quite obviously changed things in that second half. He made a couple of substitutions reasonably early on in the second half, whereas Southgate just didn't. He didn't really change anything until right at the end. I think maybe even into extra time before he made a change. 2 of his
subs just came on for penalties.
And it just felt like to me that that's the difference between a top manager and a good manager in Southgate, is that he didn't recognise and have the ability to know what to change or want to change it. He obviously has such belief and trust in those players that they could get through it.
Yeah.
But he didn't want to change it.
I could completely understand if we had a poor bench, but if you look at our team, I would say we had probably the strongest squad out of any nation in that tournament.
Certainly from an attacking point of view, I would agree. Defensively, I think, obviously it's worked out that we've actually performed brilliantly defensively, so you can't really argue.
Well, I don't know, you say defensively. Centre-backs, I don't think we're ever in trouble. I think Maguire and Stones and Mings obviously played quite well.
True.
And then, right backs, left backs, Luke Shaw was amazing and Ben Chilwell could have easily come on and done a job. Trippier played well when he played. Kyle Walker, I thought played really well, and I like his versatility that he can drop in and play centre back.
Is he a bit underrated actually? Because he seems like he often gets a bit of criticism.
I think there's been a lot of judgment on him, I think, this year. Right?
Yeah, he had one sort of poor game. I think it was against, was it Denmark or Ukraine?
There was a game that he was.
Which one? I think it was.
He was poor in the first game against Croatia.
Yeah.
But then he's played every game, hasn't he? Pretty much. He has been.
But his pace just gets us out of jail so often. It's so underrated, that ability of his. He just seems to be getting quicker as he gets older.
I feel like the World Cup could be his last go though, because he's 31, 32 now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because once his pace goes, with respect, then you're starting to think, well, if it's not your pace you're in the team for, there are arguably definitely better players going forward than Kyle Walker.
Yeah.
And it's just then down to whether he can adjust his game from a sort of positioning point of view to still be a top defender.
Bearing in mind we were missing Trent as well, so that's another right back to come in, and would have been interesting to see how much he would have played if he'd been in the tournament.
Yeah. Just going back to Italy for a second. I mean, they've been on a fairly similar journey to what England have been on for the last sort of couple of years. I mean, they didn't even qualify for the last World Cup, and they got knocked out in the quarterfinals on penalties by Spain in the last Euros. And Mancini's come in and he's really transformed this team into what's now a team that's on a 33-game unbeaten run in all competitions. And like England, they've just sort of revitalised themselves with a slightly different approach, with some great players mixed in with a lot of experienced players. And yeah, I mean, they're now European champions for the second time. It's an amazing story for them. And I don't really begrudge them. I know there was some very questionable tactics at times. I mean, how Jorginho didn't get sent off, I've got no idea.
And Chiellini strangling Saka.
What do we think on this one? Because I've seen a lot of people saying, how is that not a red card? But to me, I know it looks horrible because of the way he's done it. It's so blatantly obvious. But in effect, it's only shirt pulling, which is a yellow card offence. Is it just because it was Saka and it was so blatantly obvious?
I think the Saka's almost at full pelt and Chiellini's just sort of stood there and he's proper like
It's like act of defiance. You will not pass me. Yeah, I don't know.
No, I don't think it's a red card, but I think the Italians have been like that the entire tournament. They definitely weren't winning the Fair Play Award, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's been quite interesting actually reading, a lot of social media stuff and just seeing people saying that England got to the final because they cheated. And then there was one guy on Twitter that I just couldn't help myself, and I posted a gif of Immobile from the Spain game, was it? Right. Where he was rolling around on the floor trying to get a penalty, and then as soon as they scored, they got up and ran off. I was like, oh yeah, sure, England were the only ones cheating, weren't they? But fair play to Italy. I think they, as I say, they were the best team over the course of the tournament. They've played Belgium, they've played Spain. They've had some really tough games. So yeah, fair play to them. Overall for England, in terms of getting to the final, what does that mean for the future of this England team, just to actually get to the final?
We played last time when we got to the semis of the World Cup. I think everybody was a bit like, well, we didn't play anybody. We got there by luck type thing. Whereas this time, I don't think people can say that. Although it wasn't a strong Germany team, we still beat Germany. Denmark were pretty strong, and obviously they were on the back of Ericsson. So I think we had a much harder route this time. And we got
Czech and Croatia, in the group stages.
Croatia's always been a bit of a kryptonite, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's Germany. We said about the fact they weren't as good as they have been in the past, but they still put Portugal to the sword in the groups. So it's not like they were a bad side, which seems to be what a lot of people.
And they beat. Oh no, they didn't. They drew with France, did they, or did they lose to France?
No, I think they lost to France, didn't they?
So long ago now.
I know, it's really so much football has happened.
I mean, but considering how England's done the past 10 years, 20 years.
So you don't think then that when we look back on this tournament in say 6 months' time or a year's time, you don't think people are going to have the same criticism to say you had an easy run?
I don't think people will do, but I don't think they can.
They can't as much as they could for the
World Cup. I won't be agreeing with them this time.
So, unfortunately, after the game finished, we are yet again arriving at the door of some rather unsavoury and distasteful stories and headlines when it all should have been about how proud we are of the England team and how well they've united the country. It appears there are still plenty of people out there who don't wish to be part of that unification. We'll start with the big one, obviously the racism stories. Saka, Sancho and Rashford in particular being targeted as the three that missed. I saw some absolutely just vile tweets that were coming out as a result of this. I mean, when does it end? I mean, what has to happen for this shit to stop? It's just getting ridiculous. I
honestly don't know. Even just, not even if it's racism, even just general online abuse is not okay. I don't know. Look how many people have killed themselves from Love Island and stuff like that. Because I was going to say if one of them kills himself, but I don't even think that will make it stop because it hasn't worked for anything else.
No.
I don't know. It's unfortunate. As awful as this sounds, it is unfortunate that the three guys that missed the penalties.
Yeah. But I mean, you can't put 2 and 2 together and get 5. You know what I mean?
Well, no, exactly. They wouldn't have been Harry Kane missed it because he's white.
I mean, who needs to take the precedent here? Because we've seen numerous occasions of teams being punished for fans, where the teams might play games behind closed doors. There's been a fine levied at the
they shouldn't.
National FA. But exactly. So, but how do you take a much more targeted approach? and try and weed out the individuals, because
I think they need to do a much, thorough.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had the right word.
Yeah.
Still drunk from last night. Much thorough job of, with fans coming in and out of the stadium. Because, England got charged for that fan with the laser pen on Kasper Schmeichel.
Yeah.
I really don't think that fan's going to care less whether England get fined for that or not, to be honest.
No.
It should be them tracking down the fan. I don't know whether they did or not, and I know it's probably quite difficult to do it, but there's so many cameras in that stadium, I'm sure they could.
And so much of it is social media. There needs to be way more. All of these social media sites need to be way more on it.
Yeah, it is amazing, isn't it, that we still live in a world where people will defend this sort of thing as free speech. There's such a difference between free speech and hate speech.
Yeah.
Free speech is voicing an opinion. Hate speech is just,
generally abusing.
Generally being abusive. And when you see everything that's happened in these summer's Euros, I mean, these people will be the same people that would have gone nuts when Sterling scored the winner, or got the opener against Germany.
Yeah.
And they'll be the same people that are now. I kind of want to actually meet one of these people to find out whether they're just doing this for kicks because they know it's going to cause uproar, because they like the attention, or whether they, in real life, away from social media, whether they genuinely discriminate against black and ethnic people, or anybody really, whether it's homophobic discrimination or anything. I don't know. It's so difficult to know. I mean, it's obviously racist, whichever way you spin it, but are they genuinely racist in real life, or are they just doing it because they know they can hide behind a keyboard and a mouse?
I don't think, they'd walk up to them face to face and say these things to their faces. I think it's just so easy to tweet it and get a 5-day ban and then come back and do it again a week later.
Yeah. I would love one of these guys to walk up to someone like Mika Richards and call him one of these names and see what happens. But yeah, it's so sad. I mean, as you say, Fran, the social media companies need to take a long look at themselves, because they're just allowing this to happen. They've got the tools to stop this from happening. I don't agree with the fact that there's algorithms and stuff that they can't make it understand. We can put a man on the moon, we can put a probe on Mars. I'm sure they can work it out and do a better job at filtering out hate speech.
I think even the racism is obviously awful and disgusting and vile, but even without that, the rest of it still shouldn't be allowed either. Everything else that's been said. And I know loads of stuff's happened, like Marcus Rashford, there's a mural for him in Manchester, and it got completely vandalised last night.
Oh, I didn't hear that one.
And but a lot people today have been back and stuck things over it and decorated it and all that to make it nice. But yeah, half of his face got ripped down.
I've seen one or two people suggest that, would this sort of thing actually make Rashford, Saka and Sancho think twice about playing football for England? Do you think that would ever get that far?
I would love to know if any of that went through their head at all when they missed. I'd love to know if they, at any point, that they thought, oh my God.
Well, if I miss this, then I'm going to get...
Even afterwards, they must know. They know what's going to be like.
Yeah, can't wait to check my DMs when I get back to the change room.
A bit like Rooney, when he came off, I can't remember what England game, maybe when we lost to Portugal or something, and he said, oh, nice when you get booed by your own fans.
Yeah.
English fans, though, are a bloody nightmare. Have you seen the picture going around? The only thing that let England down last night were the fans.
Yeah. Well, you can't disagree with it. I mean, it is still, it's still a minority of fans, don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah.
But the problem is those minority are so bloody loud that, human nature is very based on sort of stereotypical images of groups of people, in the same way that you almost subconsciously make a judgment of somebody as soon as you see them in the street. You look at someone who's, if I take myself an example, if somebody looked at me and saw how overweight I am right now, they're going to think, fat bastard, he needs to lay off the Burger Kings.
They're not wrong.
They're not wrong, no.
It's McDonald's as well.
It's all of them. I'm just a slave to fast food. But you know what I mean? And they don't obviously openly do that, but that is a subconscious first thought, is that when you look at somebody, you look at their extremities, you look at the way they appeal or they look, and you make an instant judgment on it. Yeah. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be discriminatory because of that, but that's just human nature. That's how you act. And
it's just not okay.
Just lost for words, really. It's just crazy.
And beating up the Italian fans. I mean, come on.
Well, the Italian fans beating up each other as well.
All of them.
I can't imagine many other nations have fans beating each other up.
Yeah, I can't remember where I heard it. It might have been in one of my group chats, but somebody said to me, when was the last time you heard about athletics hooligans or cricket hooligans or rugby hooligans. I mean, rugby is such a violent sport, and yet, I mean, somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure they don't really segregate fans a great deal. At big international matches. Can you imagine like a Liverpool-Everton game where they didn't segregate fans? There would be genuine murders.
Problem is, I think the problem you have is about a quarter of football fans aren't actually football fans. They're sort of hooliganism fans.
They see it as a day out where they can go and cause trouble and swear and drink and just be generally dickheads. So, and then you've mentioned the beating up of the Italy fans. There was also the group of fans that tried to storm Wembley.
They did, didn't they?
I think a few of them did get in the end. I don't know how many of them got in, but why can't we just enjoy this? Like, why can't we come together as a nation and realise what is going on and how amazing this has been? And yet, all of a sudden, I mean, we've spent now, 15 minutes talking about this when we should be just celebrating the achievements of this team, and yet we're not. We're talking about all this shit.
Apparently there's a video of a steward just kicking people as they run through the gates.
Shame he didn't have steel toe caps on. And then the last one that I wanted to touch on was I don't know if you saw the images in Leicester Square.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that really struck me was I was looking around and I was looking at the general age group. It's all younger people, isn't it? That you don't see too many, older generation people in there. It really does my head in when you look around and you see, like, we've been putting on events for in the town, so there's been events put on for like the shed and stuff, and I know there's been one or two issues off the back of that, and rubbish. I mean, it's crap. It is bad, but it's, when you have big events, that sort of thing's going to happen. As long as it's not horrific and people are smashing glass bottles here, there, and everywhere, whatever. Like, people will clean that up. There'll be volunteers. It sounds crap, but that's just how the world works. But if you're going to just go out and cause public damage and do that sort of thing on a street, I mean, I hope there's police charges, I have to say. So, yeah, that's a really crap way to end that segment, isn't it? Because we're talking about this.
But anyway, England were great.
Yeah. Oh, right. Well, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to go through lots of other things about the Euros. We're going to go through our favourite moments. We've also got our predictions.
You've got your predictions.
That we did.
Yeah, I didn't predict very well.
I can't imagine mine were great either. And we'll do our usual transfers, and we'll do our team of the tournaments. Lots to go through, so we'll see you in a minute. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the show. So we will dive straight into the transfer roundup. So Dan, what's going on in the world of transfers?
So apparently Everton manager Raf Benitez encouraged the club to sign Kalidou Koulibaly from Napoli.
I mean, that'll be a signing if they can get him, given the clubs that were after him not long ago. I mean, United being one of them.
Yeah, well apparently they were...
What position does he play?
Centre-back.
He's one of the, wasn't so long ago, he was one of the hottest properties in Europe.
But they wanted like 80-odd million for him. But he's no Harry Maguire, so no. Apparently they were going to try and get him for Ancelotti, which is obviously Ancelotti was at Napoli before, which is why all the talk started. And apparently they've sort of done a bit of a, do you still want him? And Benitez has said yes, absolutely. So.
Do Everton, I mean, are they still, do we have any idea of money? Because 80 million for a club like Everton is a lot of money.
I think he's only got like 1 year left on his contract. So I can't imagine it would be sort of upwards of 30-odd mil.
Right, okay.
So, but he's 30.
I should imagine if he suddenly becomes available, if other clubs get wind of an accepted bid, I should imagine there'll be a bit of a bidding war going on.
Olivier Giroud's closing in on a move to AC Milan for 1.7 million.
How old is he now?
About 73.
Yeah. He's been around forever.
Yeah.
It's quite, because he's... Every transfer window, Giroud is rumoured and linked with other clubs. He's always ended up staying. But he's always done such a job. I think he's been really underappreciated at Chelsea.
Well, I see him very much as a substitute. He's always...
But every time he has runs of games, if you look at his goal record, it's actually really impressive. Because of the fact, as you mentioned, he's always off the bench. And then he has runs in the team, maybe because of injury. And he scored a reasonable number of goals for somebody who's not really played a great deal of football this season.
Did you see Courtois mug off Martial?
Oh, was this about...
little, like, quiz thing?
Yeah.
The players that interview each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Vertonghen was interviewing Courtois and they said, his question to ask him is like, which star players aren't going to the Euros this year? So this must have been at like the start of the Euros. And he said, Courtois said like Sergio Ramos, and then he couldn't name any others. And then Vertonghen was like, you could have had like Haaland, and then he named a couple of others, and then he was like Martial, and then Courtois was like, well, I wouldn't say Martial as a start. But
he's not wrong, is he?
I was to say, he's not wrong. Apparently, City's Gabriel Jesus is Juventus' top target this season.
Ooh.
Well, if that's the case and he does leave, then Man City will have no choice but to go and buy a striker.
Hello, Harry Kane.
I think everyone's expecting them to do it anyway. But if they do decide to let Jesus go, then they have no choice but to.
Do you think he'd go?
I think so, because I just can't see him making the cut. The fact that Guardiola was playing De Bruyne and Raheem Sterling as his striker when Jesus was just sat on the bench, I think says a lot, really.
Yeah, I think. He's just not done enough over the course of 3-4 seasons that he's been there. And I like him as a player. I think he works really hard, but he's not. Every player that comes into City from here on out is going to be compared to Aguero.
Every striker.
Every single striker that comes in is going to be compared to Aguero. So unless they can find, if they can get Harry Kane in or Haaland, then it's going to be a bit of a trying to replace Didier Drogba at Chelsea type scenario.
I don't know if you've got anything about Harry Kane on there, but do you think he would move?
I haven't.
The speculation is going to ramp up now. The Euros are over. Focus is very much now back on the Premier League and what's going to happen. So,
I think it's going to be one of those transfers that only happens if something at another club happens.
Domino effect.
Yeah, domino effect.
Like if Jesus left.
Yeah, if City managed to make enough money and they were I know they were obviously sort of desperate for a striker, but Guardiola's already come out and said that he'd happy to go another season without a striker. But if things fell in place and then it opened up that a club could get him for say 100, because I think City would pay 100 million for him.
Well, they obviously didn't get any money for Aguero, but the amount of money that's freed up yearly because of the wages would be a massive thing. If Jesus goes, he won't be on an insignificant amount of money, and if they get, I don't know, what do you think you go for, 40 or 50 million, somewhere around that, then you could easily justify then going and spending 110 million on Harry Kane if that's what if that's what it's going to cost them. So
I don't think it will happen, not this season.
What about Grealish to City? There's been that rumour as well. Imagine if they get Kane, Grealish, that front three of Kane, Grealish and Sterling. My God.
Yeah.
That would be
I don't know.
Unreal.
I don't know if Grealish would go either. I hope he does, because I'd like to see him playing like European football and stuff.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I don't know if he would.
Do you think if he'd have played
at Villa, hasn't he? He's got it pretty cosy at Villa at the moment.
Yeah, and obviously it's his boyhood club
captain.
Yeah.
Do you feel like
he's in a similar situation to Harry Kane, really?
Yeah. Do you feel like if Grealish had played a bit more of a prominent role at the Euros, that he might have been tempted a bit more to leave? Or do you think, or you could flip that and say the fact that he didn't play a prominent role, do you think he might be tempted to leave because he might think that going to City guarantees him more England time?
Do you think he'd start games at City?
Well, Guardiola rotates his squad quite a lot.
Well, that's true.
No one really ever sits on the bench for sort of more than 2 or 3 games.
No. Yeah, they've still got Mahrez, Ferran Torres.
Yeah, he wouldn't be playing week in, week out, but he would be playing regularly, I would say. Especially if they sign him for 100 million, they're not going to have him sat on the bench, are they?
No. So, just before we carry on with the transfers, we were talking about Aguero there for a moment. Have you guys been seeing what's going on at Barcelona right now?
Yeah.
What a story this could potentially be.
Can't even sign him.
So, it was widely accepted that Barcelona were in a lot of financial trouble, but I'll be honest, I didn't realise it was quite this bad. So they have gone over the wage bill limit in La Liga by 200 million, right? So La Liga have turned around and said, you are now not allowed to register any new players until you've brought that wage cap or wage limit down, which means that Messi, who's now a free agent, by the way, he could literally go anywhere. They can't re-sign him.
Apparently they're close to agreeing a new contract with him, which is interesting. Because if they were to get rid of him, that would pretty much solve their wage bill problem.
Well, in theory, he's a free agent now, so he must be off their wage bill now. So I don't know whether they're taking that into account, but yeah, they can agree a deal all they like, but until they come down to that thing, they can't get him. They can't register Aguero. They can't register Depay. I think there's one other they've signed that they can't register either. So now there's talk of Coutinho going, there's talk of Umtiti going, there's talk of Griezmann going, Dembele.
Yeah.
You know, these guys are 4 huge. I mean, Coutinho maybe not so much because he hasn't done a huge amount of Barcelona, but the other 3 made up quite the spine of their team last season.
Well, I heard they tried to release Pjanic and Umtiti on a free and just mutually cancel their contracts, but they both rejected. Stay there.
They're going to just run the club down.
Yeah.
Part of me doesn't blame
That's
them.
the problem when you pay these players so much money.
They've literally been playing Football Manager and just splashing the cash everywhere.
And they're getting, I don't know how much they're on. Let's say they're on 200 grand a week. You know, who's going to go in for Pjanic and pay him 200 grand a week? Nobody. So he's not going to want to move and get paid 100 grand a week less, is he?
Well, it's not. Yeah, exactly. And it's not only that, but other clubs now have got Barcelona by the bollocks because they know that they're desperately trying to raise money. So teams will come in and any kind of value, let's say Dembele's worth 70 million, people are going, yeah, I'll give you 30.
Yeah.
And they're going to test Barcelona's resolve. Like, how badly do you want to get rid of these players? Because, you know, we don't have a huge amount of time before La Liga, like the Premier League, is going to start.
Yeah.
And
Well, pre-season's starting now, isn't it?
And I haven't seen what the potential ramifications are, but are we suggesting here that they're going to go into administration and do a Rangers and get thrown down the leagues? I mean, that would be disaster. I mean, it's all,
how many Spanish leagues are there professionally?
I don't know.
They'd be playing with their B team, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Are they allowed that?
I don't know. I really don't. But I mean, as sort of half funny as it is that a club like that it could happen to, it is a real wake-up call.
Wonder if they would move all their players into the B team.
I don't know.
That's very far down the line.
Yeah, but this is the thing. I don't know what the potential ramifications are for not getting the wage bill down. Are we saying that they're going to get thrown out of the league? Are they going to get a humongous points deduction of like 30 points or something? And as I say, as half funny as it is, yeah, it did. And as half funny as it is, La Liga, this would be unbelievably bad because the amount of money that comes into that league. I mean, let's be honest, most people watch La Liga outside of Spain for Barcelona, for Real Madrid, and maybe Atletico Madrid at a push. If you take Barcelona out of that, especially if Messi's no longer there as well, and apparently I heard that Lionel Messi accounts for 30% of the revenue for Barcelona. 30% of their entire revenue is for Messi alone. So for when they're paying Messi 400, 500, 600 grand a week, whatever it is, because they generate so much money for him, they can sort of justify paying it for him. A bit like the Ronaldo situation going to Juventus. But it's all the other players, as you mentioned. You know, Griezmann will be on probably 200, 250k a week. You can't do that. They've been so horrifically mismanaged that they should lock their owners up in jail, frankly.
Yeah.
Can you imagine, though, their situation where all those players have to be released effectively on a free? And then because you know what'll happen, if they get released on a free, they're going to get sued as well. The players will turn around and sue them.
I think the problem is these clubs were genuinely banking on the Super League happening.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody else about that Barcelona and Real Madrid, they advertised it as saving football. It's like, no, you aren't. You're trying to save yourself.
Yeah.
And this situation just proves that.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I thought it was worth saying. I'm sorry to have hijacked your transfer story segment.
Moving into Super League clubs, Arsenal have begun negotiations with Wolves about signing Ruben Neves.
Interesting. Monies? Do we know?
Around 40, I believe, is what I read.
It's interesting. So, are we suggesting that Arsenal are about to splash 80 million on 2 players, Ben White and Ruben Neves? That would be very un-Arsenal.
Well, they've just signed another player as well, which is part of my next bit. But yeah.
Who's the next one?
They've signed Portugal under-21 defender Nuno Tavares.
Never heard of him.
He's a left-back from Benfica.
Okay.
£8 million.
Well, I can't imagine Wolves would be very happy with that because I imagine he would have been on their shopping list. So, no, this would be very un-Arsenal-like. 80 million on 2 players. I mean, when was the last time they did that? I mean, it's, we've heard them spend big on 1 player in a summer, but not 2. So, have Arsenal finally realised,
we
need some more firepower, and otherwise we're going to mid-table mediocrity.
Well, I guess they're losing Odegaard and Ceballos, aren't they? So they do need a centre mid.
Where did they finish? 10th?
8th or 9th, I think.
So no,
I mean, surely that's...
I mean, in effect, nowhere. Outside, if you're not in the top 6 or 7 now, you're...
Maybe that's what's kicked them through.
Well, I mean, this will hurt them in the pockets, and obviously their owners are very profit-orientated. So the very fact they've not got the European money, it might spur the honest thing. If we want to get that money back, we've got to dip into our pockets to make that happen, because clearly the squad is not good enough to make that happen.
Be a good signing though, Ruben Neves, I think.
Yeah, it would. And it's a good... I think he would fit quite nicely in the system. I think he's the sort of player Arteta would get some good out of. So, yeah, but that'd be a big blow for Wolves.
Yeah, it would. Who's their manager now? I can't remember. Oh, they went for another Portuguese bloke.
I feel like that was a setup for a joke. That wasn't a joke.
I literally remembered as I said it. West Ham are thought to be ahead of top flight rivals Aston Villa in a battle to sign Tammy Abraham.
Yeah, this is a rumour that's not gone away for a little while. The last time we went looking for Tammy Abraham, I think we were put off not only by the amount of money that Chelsea wanted, but also his wage demands. So unless the two of those factors have changed, I'll be surprised if we're going to splash money on him.
It'd be a good signing, I think.
I think it would be, yeah.
Especially the way you play. You play with that sort of big number 9 up front.
Yeah, I trust Moyes enough to get the best out of him because he's done a good job of converting Antonio to striker and Arnautovic into a really work-hard striker. So the only thing I'd be a bit worried about Abraham is his work rate. I think he's a little lazy, but I think that if you take Abraham from that environment into an environment where everybody's working hard, he's going to be kind of spurred on to do the same.
Yeah, he scored the same amount of goals as Timo Werner. You could take that as a positive or a negative.
Wasn't he? He was second top scorer, wasn't he, behind Jorginho, tied with Werner and that. So, yeah, I mean, as long as it doesn't break the bank and stop us from signing other players too, then I'll be all for that.
What is happening with Jay Lins? Is he staying?
The latest I heard on this was that West Ham are now back in pole position because Lingard has got serious concerns about playing time. I don't know why that's news because that should have been news.
I could have told him that when he went out one night.
So, I don't know. It's still quiet. I'm still disappointed that West Ham haven't made a move and got it. If they wanted to get it done, they could have got it done by now.
I think the problem is most players are on holiday, aren't they? And a lot of them don't want to be talking about transfers and stuff like that. So we might see...
They should be back now.
Yeah, I was going to say, we might start to see more movement. Yeah.
And West Ham had their first pre-season game the other day. So
how'd you get on?
We drew 2-2 with Dundee United. But we did have
you played
like 4 or 5 first-team players in the Westwood Academy. So... right, okay. Well, that concludes the transfer rumour mill. Let's get on to just talk about Euro 2020. We'll rattle through some categories here. Fran, you're looking very nervously at some of these.
No.
Let's talk about some of our favourite moments, some of the sort of standout moments from this year's Euros.
Well, I think to get Debbie Downer out of the way, you said it earlier.
I wouldn't say it's not a favourite moment.
One of the standout moments was obviously the Eriksen situation.
I mean, it's a horrific moment, and we still don't know what the outcome of that is, whether he's going to play again. It sounds like that
if I was his wife, absolutely
not. I was watching Sky Sports the other day, and they were saying like, it'd be good to see him back on the pitch again.
I mean, it would be good to see him back on the pitch, whether he can.
But they were saying it as if it was like a foregone conclusion that he was going to be back at some point.
Right. I know they've put some kind of device in his heart.
Yeah, pacemaker.
Some kind of pacemaker or defib device that goes in. I know there's quite strict rules in Italy about people who've had serious heart conditions being able to play, so he might have to leave Inter Milan anyway.
He can come back to Spurs.
There you go. Fran says he can come back at Spurs.
You back.
So, it was a horrific scene, it really was. But, I mean, you could argue that it really spurred on Denmark to get to the semi-final of the Euros. Again, impossible to say.
I think it hit home for everyone just how real the whole situation is. And it was genuinely frightening because everyone was frantically looking around for information as to how he was, and then all of a sudden one picture I remember came out on Twitter where it showed Eriksen awake on the stretcher, and there was a little bit of like, is this Photoshop? Has somebody photoshopped this already and created like this fake news story? But it turned out to be real, and everyone was like you could almost feel the collective sigh of relief as in the footballing world that he was okay, especially with some of the scenes involving his wife and the other players and whatnot. So still incredible that they carried on with that game. And given that they only scraped through the group stages by the skin of their teeth to then get to the semi-finals and actually play really well up to that point as well in the knockouts. And some would argue that, or some do argue that they were unlucky not to beat England. People who argue about the Sterling penalty. But then the Denmark free kick shouldn't have stood. So swings and roundabouts. Yeah. A favourite moment?
Maybe for Scottish fans when they beat England 0-0.
I mean, it's got to still be for England.
And we've just lost all of our Scottish listeners. I mean, Scotland, it was such a bad game for us, but from a Scotland fan, I think it was brilliant. I'm not one of these people that, let's say, for example, England had got knocked out and Scotland went through, I'm not one of these people that would have been like, I can't wait till Scotland gets smashed.
No, I'd
have been supporting them.
Yeah, I would
and
have been
Wales.
supporting Wales if they'd have gone further, unless they were playing England, obviously. I don't really have this beef with the home nations. I'd prefer to see them do well, especially... when they were beating Belgium in that last time. I thought it was
brilliant.
Yeah, I thought it was
one of the best moments in recent memory in a knockout stage. One of my favourite moments actually happened in the semi-final between Italy and Spain, when Cellini was playing the most brilliant mind games with Jordi Alba before the penalty shootout. Did you guys see this?
I did see it, yeah.
Where he was literally trying so desperately to get a rise out of Jordi Alba, but by not getting anything, he sort of got a reaction at the same time. He was cuddling him, he was punching him. It was brilliant. It was like Jamie Vardy levels of shithousery. It was absolutely amazing. What about biggest surprises?
Probably two for me.
France?
Yeah, one would be Switzerland beating France.
Yeah.
And the other would be Czech Republic beating Holland.
Certainly the first one. I'm not so sure about... Am I not so sure
Not
about
England
the
getting
second
to the
one?
final.
No,
I was always confident.
Should we go back a few podcasts?
It was a surprise, I think, but Netherlands have just... There's just something about Netherlands I was never really fully convinced about them. I did expect them to beat Czech Republic, don't get me wrong, but I didn't expect them
to get far.
No. But the France one, I think, was probably the biggest surprise. Everybody's favourite pretty much before the tournament started, and to lose it in the way that they did, and then all of the negativity that came out after the game about all the stuff that was said. But do you know what? We were talking about racism earlier. Mbappe got a fuck ton of that.
Yeah.
So it's not just England that has this problem. There are idiots everywhere, unfortunately.
You have to say fair play to the Swiss as well. They nearly did it against Spain as well.
Yeah, very unlucky. That red card really killed that game, didn't it? Goal of the tournament?
Be Schick for me.
Yeah, it's got to be Schick. I mean, there's been some very good goals. Italy have scored a couple of crackers, but the audacity of that goal, to pull that off from that distance, I don't think it can be anybody else.
Yeah.
What about funniest moments? I mean, I touched on one with Cellini. Was there any other moments you can think of that brought a smile to your face? Maybe not necessarily funny, but just, great moments, I guess.
Us beating Germany.
Yeah, I think the Cellini one stands out just because it was so recent, and it's genuinely difficult to remember some of the games.
The one you mentioned earlier, the Immobile rolling around.
Oh God, how can I forget? That's on the same level as the Zaza penalty for Italy in the last Euros against Spain. Absolutely outstanding. Let's move on to player of the tournament.
For me, it probably was Donnarumma.
I think, he's got to be up there just purely because he sort of won them 2 penalty shootouts, didn't he? Really.
What about English player?
English player of the tournament.
Sterling.
Really?
I think so. When we get to our predictions and stuff, I'll tell you why. But for me, Sterling.
My English player would be Pickford. I think he only had one bad game, and that was against Denmark, and that was just distribution wise. And
that was only for a period of about 20 minutes.
Yeah, but I think he, not just the penalty shootout where I really thought, here we go, we've got Pickford in goal for these penalties, and they've got Donnarumma. But if it hadn't been for us missing those 3, I think he literally would have been the hero. And everyone would have been singing his name.
Yeah, it's disappointing that Pickford saved 2 penalties and we've not won.
Yeah, actually, I mean, even the goal, he saved it and pushed it onto the post, and then it was just really scrappy and they scored. So but he made some amazing saves throughout the entire...
It's worth saying that save was actually outstanding. I mean, a lot of people have actually come out and said, could he have done better? But if you watch it, that save was outstanding, the first one.
It'd be interesting to see what he's like playing for Everton. I
don't think he's the same player.
Because you don't think he turns up for
It won't be that Pickford that goes back to Everton. They must be gutted.
Which is fine. So as long as he turns up for England, that's fine by me.
They must just sit there and be like,
where is he?
Who the fuck is this guy?
Well, we've seen in history, there's a couple of players who regularly turned up better for England than they did in their club. I mean, I think Danny Welbeck is a good example that was always really good for England but not quite as good for his club.
Sterling, potentially, you could say, is usually better internationally than club level. Yeah,
so we've seen examples of that before, but it'd be interesting to see if Pickford can carry some of that momentum maybe at the start of the season. He will obviously, all the players we got now on a holiday, so they'll come back late to the pre-season. So it's not uncommon for some of the players who've been into the latter stage of the Euros not actually playing the first game or two of the Premier League.
Yeah.
So, for the clubs that have got a number of players in the team, that's just a bit of a concern for them.
When does it actually start, the Prem?
16th, is it, of August?
Yeah,
It's usually second week. What about young player of the tournament?
Probably Pedri for me.
Yeah, that's a good show. It was exactly the same for me. I thought I didn't watch a huge amount of Spain early on, but then as I started to watch more of them in the sort of latter stages, I was really impressed with him. I think who does he play for?
He's Barcelona.
Is he?
Yeah.
I wonder how much longer he'll be at Barcelona for. I wonder if he'd be one of the ones that gets cold.
Yeah, only 18, I think, as well.
And so who's in, of these younger players, we often, I used a bit younger, I used to love watching the Euros and the World Cup and look for these gems of players. You think, well, I've never heard of you. And then all of a sudden they get a big move because they've had a great summer. So are there any players you can think of? I mean, Denzel Dumfries is probably one I can think of.
Schick.
Yeah. He's Czech Republic, so he'll probably end up at West Ham like all the others. So we're literally like Wolves are to Portugal.
It cost you a lot of money, I think, after that tournament. I think the Danish player that scored against us, because he was a youngster.
Norgard?
Yeah, something like that. I could see. Well, I already saw. Apparently, I think it was like Juventus or something want to sign him from Sampdoria. Chiesa.
Yeah.
From Italy, had a good tournament.
Yeah, he was a bit of an... I'll be honest, I've not really heard of him a huge amount before these Euros, but he was superb.
I only knew him
He made my team of the tournament.
Yeah, I only knew him through Football Manager, but I knew he played for like Fiorentina, and weirdly he was on loan at Juventus. But yeah, he had a... It's weird as well, because he didn't actually sort of come into the team until the knockout stages, because Berardi played all the group games, and Chiesa just kept coming on off the bench. And then eventually he sort of started making the starting 11 the last sort of 3 or so games. And he was one of their better players. And Mobley didn't really get out of the group stage, to be honest.
No, I mean, he was very quiet last night, wasn't he? I mean, he was one of the first to get subbed, wasn't he? He was anonymous in that game. And I think that's credit to Stones and Maguire that they kept him so quiet.
Yeah. But I think he scored 3 goals in the group game, and that was it for the entire tournament.
Yeah. Overall game of the tournament, probably that Switzerland-France.
Yeah, probably Switzerland-France or potentially Spain-Croatia.
On the same day. What a day of football that was.
Yeah, if you're going to say day of football, that was it. Was it? What were they, 3-1 up and then same score, wasn't it? 3-3?
Yeah, I mean, it was almost the same in both games, that both teams were 3-1 up and threw it away right at the end, and then obviously Spain got through, but France didn't. So, right, let's talk team of the tournament briefly then. While you're getting yours for head, I'll go first. So I've gone Donnarumma in goal, but definitely an honourable mention for Pickford. Just because for me, before the tournament, he was one of the players I was a little bit worried about for reasons I've been into.
The rest of the country, I think.
But yeah, he was absolutely outstanding throughout the entire tournament, absolute monster. Defensively, I've gone for Shawberto at left back. I think I could have easily gone for Spinazzola as well. I know he got injured, but he still had a fantastic tournament. But because Spinazzola, a couple of reasons, Spinazzola's not a left back by trade, he's a winger. Yeah. And he's only playing left back for Italy because they've got nobody else good enough to play there. But he was brilliant. But Shaw's journey that he's been on to get to this point, to then go and score a goal in a European Champions final, after everything that's happened to him in his career, I thought was just a perfect redemption moment for him almost. So I've gone for him. Centre-backs Chiellini and Maguire. We talked about how worrying the decision was to bring Maguire to the Euros in the first place because of his injury, but I tell you what, since he's been an absolute man mountain since he's coming back into the time.
United when you go back.
As long as he can get a good centre back partner, then Maguire.
Well, if we sign Varane, like we've been linked,
him and Varane would be
amazing.
Immense. Yeah. And then I've gone for Dumfries at right back. There was one or two others. I mean, I could have gone Kufal, for example. I just felt like Dumfries was just so. I've never seen an attacking fullback like him. He's almost like he didn't want to defend. And then midfield, I've gone for Jorginho, Pedri and Verratti. We sort of mentioned once or twice as to why Pedri can be in there. Jorginho, I thought, played really well. I'm not a massive fan of him for Chelsea, if I'm honest, but I did think he had a good Euros. And then front three, I've gone for Chiesa, I've gone for Schick and Sterling. So touching on Sterling as to why I think he was so good, I just feel like he is the scapegoat of the England team. And when I look at everything that he's done in these Euros without the standard England fan mentality, if you like. If you look at some of the things that he's done, the way he's taken the game to opponents, he's been so dangerous and teams are just shit scared of him. The problem is that he can do 10 things right and one thing wrong, and everyone focuses on that one thing wrong that he's done. And because of the style of play that he does, because he likes to go at people, he can be greedy, and that gives off the impression that he's very wasteful. And at times, he did make the wrong decision at times, and he should have laid it, should have passed it, whatever. But given that he was the only player to score for us up until the Germany game when Harry Kane finally scored, he got a couple of assists. He just generally was so energetic. I mean, he was still in the Denmark game, 120 odd minutes. He was sprinting all over the place. His energy levels were incredible. So the lack of game time he had at City actually probably served us quite well for this tournament. So yeah, that's why he was, for me, our best player in the tournament as well.
Yeah, fair enough. Goalkeeper, although I've gone for Donnarumma as my player of the tournament, I've actually gone for Pickford in my team of the tournament.
Controversial.
Yeah, I just thought, nobody would have thought that Pickford would be getting the Golden Glove at the end of the tournament. Do you know what I mean? 5
clean sheets in 7 games.
And we were all talking about, should he be in goal? Should it be Henderson or Pope or someone else? I think he's nailed it. Yeah, he's nailed it on now.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, that was one of the outside of centre-back, not knowing what about Maguire and maybe Henderson as well, the goalkeeping position was the big talking point, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I think he's made that his now. So left back, I couldn't choose between Shaw or Spinazzola. I wanted them both in my team, so I've put them both in my team. I've got Shaw at left back and Spinazzola at right back. And I think Azpilicueta had a really good tournament as well, so he would have been my sort of backup. Centre-backs, I was going to put Maguire in, but because he didn't really sort of come into the team until late, I went for both Italian centre-backs, so I went Bonucci and Chiellini. And then midfield, maybe a little bit different. I actually put Phillips in, because I think for him to, being as he was playing in the Championship last season, for him to come, and have a great season at Leeds and then go straight into the England team and take them to the European final, I think he'd done outstanding. And I think he was probably one of the first names on the team sheet for.
Yeah, him and Rice working together was another question mark, a little bit like the whole Lampard-Gerrard thing. So the fact that they did work very well together in the end is a big plus for England going forward, because Henderson's not getting any younger. No. And I to me, it looks like Southgate will persevere with Phillips and Rice going forward.
And I mean, it's a little bit defensive, it's a little bit negative, but they seem to have a good partnership together, and they're both 22 and 24, I think.
Yes.
So they've got plenty of tournaments left in them. So I think I'll be happy with them too. And they're only going to improve at the end of the day.
And the thing is, both of them can be more effective further up the pitch if given licence to by Southgate. Rice for West Ham makes a lot of forward runs for West Ham, and Phillips equally can play high up the pitch, and we know he's got a deadly pass on him, as we saw in the Croatia game to Sterling. So,
and Rice will be in a bigger team next year.
No, he won't. Shush.
The other two centre mids I've also gone Jorginho. I was torn between him and Verratti, but I just thought Jorginho had the better tournament for me. And I've gone for Delaney for Denmark.
Okay.
So I thought he was a leader for them, and I thought he was really good, taking them to a semi-final.
I was tempted by Højbjerg, I have to say, because I thought he had a good tournament.
Yeah, it was really hard to pick just 11 players, to be honest.
Yeah, I feel a bit bad. I've not put a single Denmark player in my team, but there were a number. Kasper Schmeichel, I know he wasn't amazing all the time, but he had a couple of very big moments for them. The captain, if nothing else, just for his leadership during that Eriksson situation. Ayer, is it? Kaya, something like that.
And then my sort of 3 forward players, I've gone for Insigne.
Yeah.
Because I thought he was like their outstanding player going forward. He was scoring goals for them when Immobile stopped scoring, really.
Yeah.
And he was in their team the entire time. I can't actually remember. I'm sure he did get taken off, but I can't really remember him ever getting taken off. It was always sort of the same subs, like Belotti was coming on for Immobile and then Berardi on for Chiesa.
Belotti was a bit of an enigma, wasn't he? Because he works so hard. But he's like Morata, we said, was the German Timo Werner. I think Belotti is the Italian Timo Werner. Works really hard, but just never seems to hit the back of the net.
And he missed his pen as well.
Yeah, that was an awful penalty. That was.
And my other 2, I've gone for Schick, because I felt like, nobody in a million years would have probably put Schick as...
I mean, I doubt anybody heard of him.
Joint top goal scorer, So I think, the cracking tournament. Plus, he got goal of the... I don't actually know if he'd won goal of the tournament, but I would have thought he would have done. And I've gone for Cristiano Ronaldo for winning the Golden Boot.
I was getting ready to say, interestingly, no one's put Ronaldo in their team, but you've thrown him in.
I have, yeah.
See, I didn't think he was that good in the tournament, though. I mean, I know he got 5 goals, but Ronaldo just scores goals anyway, but I didn't actually think he was that good.
Yeah, but I mean, he's like 36 now, and he's still winning Golden Boots in tournaments. So.
Did you see that obviously Argentina won the Copa America the other day? I watched part of that game. My God, the diving in that game and play acting is just on another level. But yeah, Ronaldo top scorer in the Euros and Messi top scorer in the Copa America.
Really?
So even at their advancing ages, they're still dominating tournaments. It's incredible. I think we obviously appreciate them, but I think we're going to appreciate them even more when they stop, because it's going to be a while before we see the likes of that level of dominance again.
That was Messi's first ever international one.
I couldn't believe that. I assumed they must have won the Copa America before, but no.
No, they haven't won it in like 30 years or something.
It's crazy. Yeah. Absolutely crazy. Right, let's, before we get onto the stat and finish the show, let's do our predictions. Fran, would you like to do the honours?
Mm-hmm. Right.
This is going to be a very low-scoring affair.
Yeah. Well, I think you got the... I'll wait.
So, Dan put the winner as Portugal.
Close.
Chris put the winner as France.
I think didn't they both go out at the same stage? Yeah.
Yeah, because then Dan put the runner-up as France and you put the runner-up as Portugal.
Ouch.
Good. Golden Boot. Dan put Lukaku. Chris put Griezmann.
I think Griezmann scored 1.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
And Lukaku got 3?
4 in the end.
4. Okay, so you got a lot closer than I did
I
on
was
that
one
one.
below.
Golden Glove. Chris, you put Donnarumma. Dan, you put Lloris.
Did I?
Lloris, that's a big shout for
You don't have faith in him ever.
No, I don't even rate him. I must have just put that because I thought France would get to the final.
Yeah.
Oof.
So Golden Glove was Pickford, wasn't
Do you
it?
know you put player of the tournament? You both put Mbappe. Love that from you two.
We've had an absolute stinker.
Love that.
I can't imagine many people would have put Donnarumma.
No.
Surprise package. Dan, you put Belgium.
Yeah, I know. Chris won that one.
So I got Italy. Yeah, I did. I'll be honest. I didn't actually expect them to go this deep, but I did think they were going to be stronger than people thought.
Yeah. They were.
Smashed it.
And they were. Yeah.
England end result. Chris knocked out in the he put R16.
That's
first knockout round.
Yeah.
I predicted, but that was because I saw who we might end up playing.
But also don't worry because Dan put the same.
Yeah. We're going to get one of the group of death.
Well done, guys.
We did get one of the group of death, but we beat them.
Yeah.
So your best player for England now, in hindsight, was Sterling.
Player of the tournament, yeah, for England, I think was Sterling.
Who was yours?
Pickford. I know I wouldn't have written that.
No,
I'm pretty sure I put Grealish.
You both put Grealish.
Who had a great tournament, to be fair, when he played.
Yeah, it's interesting that all the talk before the tournament was about Foolish. He's the human hybrid between Phil Foden and Jack Grealish. It was Phil Foden and Jack Grealish. When Foden...
He disappeared after the Croatia game, didn't he?
Well, he didn't. Southgate just made him.
Well, he had a slight knock for last night, I think.
But
injury-wise.
But
I think he was dropped for the Czech Republic game because he was on a yellow, and then we didn't see him again until the Denmark game, and even then it was a 10 minute
You say he was
sub.
dropped because he was on a yellow. Rice and Phillips weren't dropped when they were on yellows.
Yeah, I think. Well, that was never confirmed by Southgate as the reason. That was what the purveying.
I don't think that was the reason, personally. I think he just.
Well, based on how he changed the team for the rest of the tournament, I think that was just rotation.
He went with Saka from then on, really, didn't he?
Yeah. Random thing. Dan, you put Southgate gets a goal.
Southgate gets a goal.
Southgate. Oh no, what does that say?
Southgate that's a very random thing to happen.
Southgate dabs a goal.
Same thing. And Chris, you put one game to have 8 goals.
Oh, it did. Well, if you're counting extra time, Croatia-Spain was 8 goals, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Nice. Team to score the most. Dan, you put France. Chris, you put Belgium.
I don't even know.
I don't actually know who scored the most goals.
And while you're there, Google team who conceded.
It must be Spain, I reckon.
Team who conceded the most as well, really.
Highest scorers in Euro 2021. Ronaldo didn't get that award on his own.
It must be Spain because they scored 10 goals in 2 games.
High scoring team. It's just giving me individuals. Where are we?
A team who conceded the most. Dan, you put Germany. Chris, you put Macedonia.
I put Germany to concede the most. That's interesting.
I put Macedonia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you went because you imagined they get later.
In, yeah.
Okay. Just Googling.
But no, because we knocked them out.
Yeah.
No,
To be fair, I feel like one of my favourite moments would probably be us beating Germany. So I feel like at that point everyone was like, oh, it might be coming home.
Yeah, that was
a good moment
because we knew what the rest of the bracket looked like. We knew that Germany was such a big game.
Before the I can't remember what game it was. I think it was it the Germany game? Yeah, I think when we beat Germany, I really drunkily text my dad saying it's coming home, and he texts back saying don't go getting too far ahead of yourself. And then after the Ukraine game, he messaged me saying it could actually be coming home.
Didn't you say to him, no, it's not as fucking coming home or something like that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, we'll have to do that off because I'm going to have to
count it all up.
Google's not helping here, so I'm going to have to count up and work it out. But right, so that is our predictions done. So we will finish off with the stat. Damn the stat, man.
So Gareth Southgate has made at least one change to the England starting 11 for 37 consecutive matches, making a total of 200 changes in that time. Can you think back 37 matches to which game it was when he last made?
Trying to think how many.
No changes.
That must be before the last World Cup. Because I think we have not played that many games between the last World Cup and now. That must have been really early on in his managerial career with England then. I mean, I absolutely cannot.
No, obviously you're probably not going to get it.
I'm not going to get it, but who was it? Oh, okay, I'll go Spain.
It was actually against Croatia in the 2018 World Cup semi-final.
No way have we played 38 international games since then.
Must have done. I guess the Nations League as well, did we? In between.
Nations League friendlies, yeah, maybe. Bloody hell. That shows you how many games they cram in. 38. That's an entire Premier League season of England games between.
Well, 2. Well, I guess 3.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't have been far off that. I mean, I know they've delayed the England by a year. We've probably only played 4 or 5 games in the last year, England-wise. So
that's the last time he didn't make 2 changes. Well, he didn't make a change 2 games in a row.
I mean, you could. I think one change you can get away with, especially when it's not, through the core of the team. If he was tinkering with centre backs or centre midfielders every game, I think there'd be a bit more of a problem.
Interesting that it was always that right wing position there.
That was it was the only position other than
right back, I guess.
Fullbacks. He changed a bit, but nowhere near as much. But that right wing position changed almost every game. So yeah, right. Well, we have come to the end. What a moment! 47 episodes. Wow, what a journey! England in the final of the European Championship. What a journey it's been this year. So thank you very much for everyone who's been part of this journey with us. We are going to have a couple of weeks off from doing the podcast anyway. Me and Dan are going to do some other YouTube stuff. So make sure you're subscribed to us on YouTube, and we'll get some content coming up on that in the coming days and weeks. We're also going to have a little brainstorm and work out some things we can do for next year. If anyone's got any ideas...
Next year, 3 weeks' time.
3 weeks' time, next season. If anyone's got any ideas about features they'd like to see...
punishments for Chris when he loses.
No, you're losing and I've already got your punishment set out. But I mean, we do have to think of another quiz, whether we stick with the same one we had or whether we find something new. So yeah, it's been a wild ride. Thank you guys for coming along for the ride.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And I guess that's it. We sign off, and we will see you all. We will be back on your radios and phones and car radios. Screw you. I'm old, right? Radios is still like current to me. We'll be back with you in a few weeks' time. So thank you very much, everyone, and we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.